Or even get a good hot dog and love on each other and just catch up with each other, and then, but especially see what you have for us, Lord, in your word tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Happy Wednesday. How's everybody doing?
Happy Wednesday.
Amen. Amen, Sister Sean. All right. Anybody got a good story of an act of kindness you did today? No? Nothing at all? Just want to change it up because I know on Wednesday we have our closer crew, our closer people. Wednesdays are always good for me, a little bit more intimate. Just trying to get to know everybody. But since now I know that everybody in our church is mean and selfish, I guess we can go forward with our worship. I'm just kidding. It was good to see all you guys today, man. I hope you guys are enjoying that nice, cool weather we had today as well. Amen. Yeah, just be careful. I think next week we're supposed to have it at triple digits already, up in the hundreds. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying too. So, I'll be praying for all you guys while I'm in my AC. All right. Amen. God is good all the time. Like I said, it's good to see you guys. So let's just worship a little bit and just usher in the Spirit of God. Whatever you came with today, I pray that in His name that you get some kind of encouragement today. This just perks you up and lets you know everything's going to be okay. Whatever it is you're going through, everything's going to be okay. Prayers up for my brother Larry if he's watching. Great guy. And we're trusting in God that everything's going to be okay, moving in the right direction, moving in a positive direction. So we love you, brother Larry. Amen. All right. And God loves us. He loves us all the time. He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree, bending beneath the weight of His wind and mercy. And all of a sudden, I am unaware of His actions eclipsed by glory. I realize just how beautiful you are, and how great your affection So I'll throw up my hands, praise you again and again. It's all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I have nothing else fit for a king. So I'll throw up my hand, praise you again and again. All that I have is a hallelujah, He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Loud praise right there, everyone. Thank you, Lord.
Amen, amen, amen. Ned, what Friday was that, the 23rd for the movie night? So June 23rd is a Friday. We're going to do a movie night and show the Jesus Revolution movie. We're going to serve hamburgers and hot dogs that night, and then there'll be a donation for those because we're doing something with the money. But the popcorn will be free, and so just come that Friday night. I'm not sure, I can't remember what time we said. Start them 6 or 6:30, somewhere 6 or 6:30. We'll start the movie. So just keep that in mind. We'll put some flyers out. It'll be in the bulletin. June 23rd, and then we got some other events planned in this summer. Don't forget, we also have the 4th of July picnic at the Spiegelville Park. We have the pavilion rented, so we'll be having food out there and do baptisms as well as we've done every year. So make plans to be there for that. Anyways, we got some exciting things to try to do as a church, and I just feel like that we need to love on each other more. So, anyways, if you got your Bibles, turn with me to 2 Kings chapter 12. You know, one of the things about going through the Kings is a lot of these particular kings, we don't remember them. We don't know a lot about them other than just a little bit that we read about them. And each of them has their own personality, and we watch how God uses them or doesn't use them, how God gives them opportunities and how they blow it, and how given a lot of great gifts, how even being given all these gifts, they abuse it, take advantage of it. And there are so many life lessons for us if we would just be open to these character studies, basically, is what they are. To me, that's the best kind of study in the Bible is character studies, just kind of looking at everybody in the Bible as an individual and just letting them line up by their own merits to how they walk with the Lord. And then I can find in my own journey walking with the Lord, you know, I can tell when I know the Lord's going to bless me and if he ain't going to bless me, basically. I can tell if he's with me, if he's not with me by going back and reading what he's already done, what he allows, what he doesn't allow, how he thinks. And see, here's the deal is we're trying to understand a personality that we can't see the individual. Because, the Lord has a personality. The Lord has a character. There's things about him that make him unique. I mean, of course, he's God and he's everything, but he relates to us a lot on a human level. That's why he sends his prophets. That's why he sent Jesus to be on a human level. But ultimately, what he's trying to help us understand is who he is, that he's personable. He's approachable. He's accessible. He's not just a God that thunders over the mountain and scares everybody like he did in the Old Testament, and when the children of Israel first came out, he showed up on the mountain and he spoke to them in thunder, and they said, Moses, don't ever let him speak to us again. Even though he is that God, he's trying to come to us differently. He's not trying to come to us from a mountain perspective in a fearful, dreadful way. He's trying to come as this Savior perspective. And so we have the Old Testament character of God, we have the New Testament character of God, and now we got to reconcile them. Got to put them together. Some people think that God's grace keeps them from going through hard times. That's not necessarily true. Sometimes you start off strong, but you won't always finish strong. The Christian journey is not, this, I like the way they said this, it's not a speed race. It's an endurance race. It's an endurance. It's about endurance. It's about the ability to last. It's about the ability, because here's the deal, is most of us, when we talk to other people, we'll tend to brag on ourselves a little bit. We'll speak a little bit. But here's the deal, is that's okay if you'll live up to it. If you'll speak yourself up to a higher place, then get up there. What happens is people put it out there, but they don't follow through. And in Christianity, you got to follow through. You have to follow through in Christianity. Christianity is not just sit back and receive. Christianity is receiving and moving. And everybody moves differently. Not everybody's called to move to the mission field. Not everybody's called to move to the pastorate. Not everybody's called to move to children's ministry, adult ministry, whatever. We're all moved to different ministries. So we came across this young man last time we met in chapter 11. You know what, let me just go back. Let's just go back and read it because we got plenty of time. I just want to read chapter 11 as we get into chapter 12 because one of the things I want you to remind you of is God's ability to keep his word. Even when you think he hasn't. Even when it looks like he hasn't. God's ability to keep his word. When he put David on the throne, he said it would be a forever throne. Which means there would be a bloodline of David, directly from David, a bloodline that you could trace all the way to the Savior. Forever. That's the forever throne. So at this particular time, we've seen Jezebel and Ahab be destroyed and killed because of their wickedness over Israel. But we also saw, as we've been studying the last few chapters, how Ahab and Jezebel married their children, their daughter, to the king of Israel, to Jerusalem. So what they were doing is they were infiltrating the blood of David. One of the daughters of Ahab and Jezebel was Athaliah. Athaliah was the queen of Jerusalem. She was married, I can't remember which king she was married to, but she was married and she had kids, and her son was on the throne. Her son was also a child of Ahab, or a bloodline of Ahab, because she's a bloodline of Ahab. So Ahab's blood was in this same person that King David's blood was in. That's interesting too. When Jehu killed all the Ahab's descendants and killed the son of Athaliah, Ahaziah. Athaliah went and killed all her grandchildren. She killed all her grandchildren. She thought she killed all her grandchildren. She wanted to go and wipe out all the seed of David, even though they included her own grandchildren. She wanted to be queen. She didn't want nobody coming to her throne, so she killed her own grandchildren. That is just bizarre. That's even could come up in somebody's mind that would even be possible to do. But yet, we live in a day and age we see worse. We see what mothers do. And so Athaliah kills everybody, but there's a woman named, what was her name? She was the sister of the king. She was also married to the high priest of the temple. We'll get to him in the next chapter. And she hid him away. So she snatches him up when she hears the queen is sending out a hit squad for all the kids. She goes and she snatches up this one heir and doesn't tell anybody. Takes this one heir, moves him into the temple, to the actual temple of God in Jerusalem, and he grows up there in the temple. And after 6 years of hiding him, on the 7th year, in verse 4, chapter 11, about the king, what happens is everybody thinks the lineage of David is dead. They think God has not been able to fulfill his promise. All of a sudden, the high priest calls for a meeting of all the leaders of all the different tribes, or all the different heads of the households, brings them in, and then brings the young man out at 7. I think he's 15 by now, something like that, 13, 14. Anyway, they bring him out and says, "This is the promised one." And so all these people who thought God had lied or God had not been able to fulfill his promise, all of a sudden there's one right here. Listen, when all hope seems lost, when all hope seems lost, God is not finished, and he'll fulfill his promises. He's good. He loves us. And that's one of the things that I think it's no big deal, because God is working. Man, He is working behind the scenes. I don't care what they're plotting in Washington. I don't care what they're plotting in Texas. All I know is my God is over it all, and I just stay in my lane. And as long as I stay in my lane, there's protection there. When I get out of my lane, I wreck. It says, in the 7th year, Jehoiada, the high priest, sent and brought the captains of the hundreds and the bodyguards and the escorts and brought them into the house of the Lord to him, made a covenant with them, took an oath from them in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. Boom. Blew them all away. So now let's just jump forward. Now the king is in place in chapter 12. It says, in the 7th year of Jehu, which is the king of Israel, Jehoash, which is the young man, King David's grandson, became king, and he reigned 40 years. That's a good long reign. King David reigned 40 years as well. But here's the sad thing. It just seems like just when you think somebody's going to maintain their ability to walk it out to the end, another one bites the dust. That's so discouraging. I'm telling you, it's very discouraging, because if that king can't do it, if that man can't do it, it makes me think you're going to do it. What makes you think you can do it? Or you. Who can walk this thing out? Who can finish strong? We're seeing all these people not finish strong, but King David finished strong. Paul finished strong. The disciples finished strong. It can be done. We can finish strong. I've had the unfortunate blessing to do the funeral of lovely people, beautiful people. But it's nice to do a funeral when they finish strong. There's nothing like being where you're supposed to be when you die. You were the grandmother you were supposed to be. You were the grandfather you were supposed to be. You were the husband you were supposed to be. You were where you were supposed to be. You were never not where you weren't supposed to be. Where's your husband at? I don't know. He didn't come home tonight. And he dies out there. Well, he died where he shouldn't have been. We want to die where we're supposed to be, in the direction we're supposed to be living. That's how you want to die. You don't want to die on the wrong road, in the wrong direction. You don't want to die in the wrong arms. You want to die in a good place. And you can do that. You can die in a good place. You can make the right choices every day to die in a good place. No matter what comes at you, don't let what comes at you deter your character. It's funny, I watch a lot of, when COVID hit, they moved all the courts to TV or computers, or what do you call it when you video? And so now everybody's doing video courtrooms. So now the people aren't actually in the courtroom. The people they talk a lot of smack. Now, if they were in the courtroom, sitting right there in the presence of a judge with the guards around, they wouldn't say some of the stuff. But on Zoom, some of these people are ridiculous. But it's funny to watch a person defend themselves, male or women, defend themselves to the judge, especially about being anger issues or over the top in certain situations. Well, they're convincing the judge that ain't them, until they don't get it their way. And as soon as they don't get their way, they reveal who they really are. And that's how we get sometimes. When things don't go our way, we don't act right. When the Lord don't answer our prayer the way we'd like for Him to answer our prayer, we don't act right. We kick the sand. We kick the Bible sometimes. Because God doesn't always answer the way we want Him to answer. He doesn't always do it the way we'd like for Him to do it. But if you walk with Him, you got to trust that this is just part of how it's going to work out for you. You have to trust the process. You have to trust His process for you. My process included a divorce. I sure hope yours don't. But my process included when I first got saved. My wife left me. Didn't understand why she left me, and she left me for another guy. It didn't make no sense to me. But it was part of my process. I had to move through that. I had to push through and still love the Lord and trust the Lord, even though she was in the arms of another man. I had to trust that the Lord was on my side, and look what He's done for me. That pretty girl sitting way over there waiting for me to get out of church. That's how the Lord works. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that when I was going through that divorce, when she was leaving me for another guy. I wasn't going, oh, yeah, God's got something good for me. I was like, what? What? But then I would go, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Albert, don't lean on your own understanding. Don't lean on trying to figure it out yourself. Don't just let yourself try to figure out what's going on, Albert. It's not for you to decide. What you to understand is how you act. Because it says, in all your ways, acknowledge God. And He will direct your path. That is an absolute, glorious promise for anybody who will take it to heart and walk it out. Anybody. My life is based on that scripture. Because I can tell you how many things don't make sense to me. How many things happen to me that don't make sense to me. How many things that come our way that don't make sense to us. How many things in your life don't make sense why they come at you. You don't understand why this is happening. You don't understand why God's allowing it. You don't understand. Well, listen, He says, don't lean on your own understanding anyways. Because if you do think you understand it, you're understanding it wrong. Basically, don't that make sense when you look at it from heaven's perspective, from God's perspective? Because He gave us that scripture for a purpose. He gave us that scripture because He knew that I would go through something that would confuse me in my mind about who He was completely. And so when people would give me that scripture in that first year of my walk, I'd just go, lean not on your own understanding. Don't try to figure it out. Every time you try to figure it out, you make yourself madder. You make yourself more frustrated when you try to figure it out because you can't. His ways are not our ways. He tells us that. He tells us that. What kind of loving God would give us such a heads up? A loving God would. He gives us a heads up. He tells us everything. There's nothing that should catch us off guard. Nothing. So Jehoash becomes king. Now, this part we're going to read is really uninteresting when I read it, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Now, remember, this young man was raised in the temple, and during the time that Ahab's influence was on the kingdom of Israel, Athaliah and her son Ahaziah, they robbed the temple of God's precious, the chalices and the ornaments they used to work, the gold-plated instruments in the temple. They robbed them and took them to the temple of Baal. They would go into the temple and kind of destroy things and just abuse it and then go to the temple of Baal. And so this young man who was raised in the temple, his first act is want to restore the temple. His first act is wanting to fund the restoration of the building. And I think that's a great gesture. I think that just shows that his heart, that he knew, not that today the church is the same thing, but that temple was special. That temple, the presence of God would show up in that temple when they would do the sacrifices in the Holy of Holies. And so that temple did represent God. And so that temple being robbed and neglected just kind of was a reflection on the people towards God. And he didn't want that reflection towards the people towards God. So he wanted God to have a good reflection, a good building, a nice place, the way it's supposed to be. It says, but Jehoash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days in which Jehoiada the priest instructed him. Now notice it said that. He did good and did right as long as the priest was alive. Now the priest was about 100 years old when Joash came into his life. So he'd already seen several kings. He'd been around with Ahab and them. He'd watched a lot. So he'd been around a while. He lives to about 130. And it says, as long as he was alive, he instructed Jehoash. So that tells us basically when he dies, he's going to go wrong. And then in verse 3 it says, but the high places were not taken away, and the people still sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. That is not a good thing. That is a bad thing that he has allowed to continue. This is a bad habit. This is a bad part of their religion. And God is not dealing with it right here for some reason, but it will come back later and haunt them. Because when you don't really clean house all the way, you know what I mean. And Jehoash said to the priest, all the money of the dedicated gifts that are brought into the house of the Lord, each man's census money, each man's assessment money, and all the money that a man purposes in his heart to bring into the house of the Lord, let the priests take it themselves, each from his constituents, and let them repair, there are people in there, and let them repair the damages of the temple wherever any dilapidation is found. And so here's the different offerings. It said, let each man, the census money was every man had to go to the temple at least once a year and give a shekel. A shekel was probably about $50 or something like that. But every man had to give that as payment for his life to the temple, as an offering to the Lord for his life, a sin offering, basically, a type of sin offering. So it was the one way to provide for the priests in the temple, because the Levites couldn't own anything. They didn't have no jobs. Their whole business was working the temple and the things of the Lord. And so their money or their livelihood came from the offerings. And so each man had to give a shekel. And so they said, take the shekel that usually goes to the priest and build the building. That don't sound very good, does it? And then it says that that each man's assessment money. So for every male child that was born in your house, you had to pay a certain amount, and for every female, you paid a certain amount. And so, as the head of the household, it was also his requirement to pay for the people in his house to the Lord, went to the priest. And so, look at the next verse. It says, now it was so, by the 23rd year of the king, so we just jump up, so he's almost 30 now. We just jump on up there. That the priests had not repaired the damages to the temple. So in 20 years, they had to do no work. Because it was going to have to come out of their pocket, basically. It was because the temple money went to their pocket. But Jehoash wasn't thinking, he was just saying, take the money that's supposed to go to you and fix the temple. And of course, they bought food with it. They paid their bills with it, did whatever. So they never did any of that. So they finally decided to do what all good Baptists do. They started a building fund. Check it out. This is the first building fund ever. It's a special account for the building fund. It says, so King Joash called Jehoiada the priest and the other priests and said to him, why have you not repaired the damages of the temple? Well, because we need that money. Now, therefore, do not take more money. Listen, do not take more money from your guys, but deliver it for the repairing of the damages of the temple. And the priests agreed that they would neither receive more money from the people nor repair the damages of the temple. So they weren't necessarily saying that they weren't going to do all these things. They weren't going to take the money that they were supposed to be taking and do something, do the building. It says, then Jehoiada the priest took a chest. He took a sealed chest. He put a hole in it, in its lid, and set it beside the altar on the right side as one comes into the house of the Lord. And the priests who kept the door put all their money in there who brought to the house of the Lord. So people would actually go in there and directly say, this is for the temple. This is for the temple. It's that money actually went for the temple and didn't go to the priest. And so it was an easier way to kind of account for it, I guess. I don't know. That's the first time I've ever seen that. I thought it was interesting that the Lord would even put that in there. And it worked, because look what it says. And so it was, whenever they saw that there was much money in the chest, that the king's scribes and the high priest came up and put it in bags, counted the money that was found in the house of the Lord. Then they gave the money which had been apportioned into their hands of those who did the work, who had the oversight of the house of the Lord, and they paid it out to the carpenters and the builders who worked on the house of the Lord. So they paid everybody, because here's the interesting thing. A lot of times when a lot of churches have building projects, they don't ask you. They say, would you do it, and don't even offer to pay you. We always try to offer to pay anybody, especially if we ask them in their trade to do their trade. Because when I got saved, I had a trade. I laid tile, and I got asked to give away my tile for free all the time. I never got offered to offer it to them. I never got a chance to say, I'm going to give you my tile job. They always just weren't ever going to pay me. And I always thought that was messed up. Even though I thought I was doing good to the church and blessing the church, but when you're laying tile and you're that tile and you're that hot and tired and you ain't getting paid for it, you're just like, this is not fun. Not getting anything. I trusted the Lord, and the Lord did have my back. Don't worry, He got my back. But I just knew once I became a pastor that I wasn't going to do that I would at least offer. And you know what? Most people give it back or do something else, but it puts the power in their hands, though. And that's the key, is putting the power in their hands and not being in the position to think you can just say, oh, you're an electrician. Hey, I need you to run all this wire for us. You know what I mean? Without saying, hey, we'll pay you for it. And we've also paid people more than they deserve sometimes, too. So that happens, too. They overcharge us. Even in the church, it happens. But anyways, let's move on. And to the masons and the stone cutters and for buying timber and hewn stone, they're going to make sure they don't get no liens on the temple. They make sure they pay all the contractors. For the damage, to repair the damage of the house of the Lord, and for all that was paid out to repair the temple. However, there were not made for the house of the Lord basins of silver, trimmers, sprinklers, bowls, trumpets, any articles of gold. They hadn't got around to replacing all that yet. But they gave that to the workmen, and they repaired the house of the Lord with it. Moreover, they did not require an account from the men into whose hand they delivered the money to be paid to workmen, for they dealt faithfully. I think that's interesting that there was nobody to oversee them because everybody could be trusted to do the right thing. I thought that was pretty good. The money from the trespass offering and the money from the sin offering was not brought into the house of the Lord. It belonged to the priests, as I was telling you earlier. Now, this is the sad part. Hazael, king of Syria, went up and fought against Gath and took it. And then Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. And Joash, king of Judah, took all the sacred things. Listen to this. He took all the sacred things that his fathers, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah, kings of Judah, had dedicated, and his own sacred things, and all the gold found in the treasuries of the house of the Lord and in the king's house, and sent them to Hazael, king of Syria. Then he went away from Jerusalem. Now, the rest of the acts of Jehoash and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of Judah? And his servants, and his servants arose and formed a conspiracy and killed Joash in the house of Millo, which goes down to Selah. For Josachar, the son of Shemeth, and Jehozad, the son of Shomer, his servant, struck him, so he died, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David. Then Amaziah, his son, reigned in this place. You notice how it just changed all of a sudden like that? Well, that's why I have 2 Chronicles 24 up here, because Chronicles gives us more of an in-depth understanding of what happened to him at the end of his life, as opposed to what 2 Kings tells us happened to him. It says that the king of Syria came and he basically took all this treasure that his family had accumulated 4 generations. 4 generations of accumulation of treasures. Because this king was coming against him, this guy paid him off to leave him alone. See, when you step out of line with the Lord, sometimes your enemy gets your riches. Don't drug dealers get your riches? Don't liquor stores get your riches too? Yeah, so it says, but Jehoiada grew old and was full of days, and he died. And he was 130 years old. This is the priest. And they buried him in the city of David among the kings which had done good in Israel, both toward God and his house. This guy had a good life. Now, after the death of Jehoiada, the leaders of Judah came and bowed down to the king, and the king listened to them. Therefore, they left the house of the Lord their God of their fathers and served wooden images and idols, and wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem because of their trespass. Listen, he listened to the wrong guys. He let the wrong guys come around. He listened to the wrong people. He had the wrong influence around him. And they talked him into leaving the worship of the Lord and go and serve idols. This is what the Lord did. The patience, the goodness, the love, the mercy of the Lord that we don't see in 2 Kings, we see in Chronicles mentioned. Yet he sent prophets to them to bring them back to the Lord. And they testified against them, but they would not listen. Check this out. Then the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada, the priest. So this would be like his older half-brother, step-brother, because he was raised in the same house with him for a little while, or at least by the same dad. We don't know how old he was. The man lived 100 years old, so his son could have been 80. I don't know. But Zechariah was the son, and Jehoiada raised Joash as a son. But watch what Joash does. When the Spirit of the God came upon Zechariah, and he went and spoke to him, he said, "Thus says God, why do you transgress the commandments of the Lord so that you cannot prosper?" This is what he says. You're not prospering because you're not obedient and you're not following. You're not standing in the lane that the Lord designed for you. You're not walking the walk that he put in front of you to walk. And because of that, you can't prosper. You can't prosper. If you're not prospering, you got to check your road. You got to check the road. Because listen what he says. Because you have forsaken the Lord, he also has forsaken you. And so they let a conspiracy rise up, and he was murdered. That is a shame. So we have certain callings in the New Testament written by Peter and Paul and the prophets and the apostles. But in these letters, in the letters of the New Testament, these are instructions. And these instructions are to benefit the Christian in their walk through this life. And the reason that God knows that we need to hear these things, because when we're walking through this world, our minds are going to tell us differently. So if we know what the scriptures say, when our minds try to tell us something different, the scriptures will kind of override that. It's supposed to override your thoughts. Take every thought captive. That's what Ephesians tells us to do. So every thought that's human and flesh and all that, you got to trump it with truth. And whatever you do it heartily. That means do it with your whole self. As to the Lord and not to men. Most people fall short in their service to the Lord is because they try to please the men, women, rather than understanding it's for the Lord. See, I understand it's for the Lord. I've had to learn over the years not to pander to certain people because of their influence or their financial stability or whatever, because I think I need them to help me. I think I need them to take. I learned that in the tile business. When I was in the tile business, I worked for a couple of guys, and they gave me a lot of work, and I just thought, man, if I don't ever work for these guys, I'm never going to be in good business. I got to work. I got to do everything they ask me to do. I need to jump when they need me to jump, and I thought I had to be there every time they needed me. Lie to this guy to take care of this guy. Put me in them kind of positions sometimes. And finally, one day they used somebody else. After using me and I'm dedicated to them, they used somebody else, and I went, you know what? Instead of getting mad, the Lord just spoke to me and says, who are you depending on for your work? So I would get up every morning. I was already doing it, but my prayer changed. And I would, instead of thanking God for that individual, I would thank God for the supply wherever it came. And there was a set of years. It's crazy because there was a set of years. If you called any carpet company in Waco, there was probably 5 or 6 Advanced Carpet, Waco Carpet, this Brazos Carpet, all these different carpet places. If you called any of those carpet places and scheduled a tile job, I was probably showing up. Whether you went to this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, I had a contract with all of them. They would all use me because they could trust me, and I showed up on time. I did, and the guy was just showing me I was all over the place, that he had me. But I just had to be honest. I had to do the right thing. I had to make good choices, which I didn't always do, but I learned the hard way. But I had to learn that I work for the Lord. And then it says this, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. And then it tells us the truth. But he who does wrong will be repaid for what he has done. And there is no partiality. Ecclesiastes, the end of a thing is better than its beginning. Right? You want to see how something finishes, how it ends up. Somebody can promise you that this detergent will work, but it's at the end that you find out if it worked or not. You know? The patient, and I like this part because it's in the same, it's put in the same context. The patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit, because to understand the journey, you got to have patience to trust the Lord through it all. Patience is key when you walk to the Lord, when you walk with the Lord. In Philippians 3, not that I have already attained or am already perfected, but I press on. Look, that word press on, it means a constant pushing against. It's not just moving forward. It's a struggle to move forward. It's a struggle to push ahead. Mentally, emotionally, right? It's hard with all these different things, but that's what it means, to press on. And then it says that I may lay hold of that for which Christ has also laid hold of me. that I may lay hold of that for which Christ also laid hold of me, life, eternal life. When he laid hold of me, he laid hold of me, and I'm his eternally. And I lay hold of him, and he carries me eternally. It's not just one way. Brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended or to get it all. But one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead. I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Jesus Christ. I press, I push, I don't quit. I don't let the circumstances of life, the fear of this world, the fear of circumstances keep me from trusting that God's for me and going to get me through this, even if I die doing it. Even if I die pressing on, I'm a winner. Press on. I press towards the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. Let us not grow weary. Let us not grow weary. I grow weary sometimes, but only because I'm human and my flesh is tired. But my spirit says, don't quit. Don't quit. It says, and let us not grow weary while doing good. For in due season, not tomorrow, not next week, in due season. Whenever he determines his due season, his seasons aren't our seasons. In due season, at the right time, things show up. Right, little brother? At the right time, things can show up. You never know. Therefore, as we have opportunity, listen, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially those who are of the household of faith. All right. So don't quit. It gets boring sometimes, the Christian walk. Church can be boring sometimes. The Bible can seem boring sometimes. Your Christian life, your Christian walk can seem boring sometimes. But listen, this is the most valuable thing you have in your existence. The most valuable thing you have in your existence is the fact that God has allowed you to know him. You may not fully grasp him yet, but he has allowed many of us to know him, even just a little bit. Just enough to make us know that this life is worth pushing through. And so even when this life throws you the darkest moments, and even though you do find yourself walking through the valley of the shadow of death, just know it's a shadow. Amen? Let's pray. Father, we just love you. I'm just so in awe of you. I'm so in awe of your words and how relevant this ancient book of letters, Lord, from all these different men, Lord, can have such a transforming power available. And Lord, I thank you for allowing me to be a witness to that power. Allow me to be a witness to the favor. Allow me to be a witness of the prosperity. Lord, allow me to be a witness of your grace. I pray for those in here tonight, Lord God, who need more understanding. Not their own understanding, but you, understand you, to trust you, Lord. And so, Father, we just thank you for the examples of the lives of the men and women before us, even good and bad, Lord God. And we pray that our hearts and our minds are actually feeding on the history of your people, Lord, because you said it was written to teach us, to correct us, to help us. So, Father, we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Who wants some